of it, so I'll watch it off stream. I don't really watch 3 hour long dev updates while I'm streaming, but the kind of the topic of conversation over the last couple of days with Ashes of Creation is whether or not the PvP, the forced PvP everywhere, is going to be a problem for the game. I personally love forced PvP everywhere, but I also acknowledge the fact that overwhelmingly most people do not enjoy it. And you can look at other games, but I don't think that's the game that they're trying to create. As long as they understand that a lot of people that could play the game are going to be turned off from that, and they're okay with that, then that's fine. I think it's going to be a more fun game for what I want to play. But I do think there's going to be a large population of people that, as soon as they get griefed a couple of times, they're going to say, "Forget it, I'm done with this game." So, anyways, there's been a couple of videos out lately. This one's by Narc. Of course, he's one of the main content creators for Ashes of Creation, and he's got the most copium, I would say, for sure. He's fully on board. I'm fully on board as well, but let's see what Narc has to say
What
about.
up, boys? Man, these content creators and community members are certainly carrying my ad revenue this month. First, we have some woke agendas, then Josh decided to remind everyone he doesn't actually play MMOs. We got the bold man reacting left, right, and center, and Mr. Top 10 MMORPGs to play with no friends. The lucky ghost himself, delivering some juicy controversy.
So this is the video that we watched the last stream, the Lucky Ghost one, which I agreed on his points, that a lot of people are going to be turned away from the game because of what it is. I think I'm going to enjoy the game because of what it is, but I acknowledge that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be turned off. So this is looks like it's a direct response to the Ghost video that we watched. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's the last video, so.
Straight to my door. I didn't even have to pay him like I did with the others, so this is glorious. However, I'm not going to be addressing the topics in the video at hand. I'm sure you've all watched it yourself and have seen various reactions, so you can absorb a bunch of shit takes because you're starving for any kind of content whatsoever. And I admit, I have been withholding your usual dose of copium this month to enjoy my sudden increase in revenue. I'm just so ashamed that I've let down my fellow copium addicts. I will make it up to you guys. Just please continue to watch those ads. The video in question did bring up some great points and concerns. However, it's important to remember that Ashes of...
So the points that if you haven't seen the Lucky video, the points that he was making was that a lot of people aren't going to be able to tolerate the griefing that'll be going on in Ashes of Creation. The systems that Ashes of Creation have in place to stop griefing, he was wrong about. Like, he didn't have a full understanding as how the systems work. The point being, though, was that griefing is going to ruin the game for some people, and that's acknowledged, I think, by Steven. I think he's said many times this game will not be for everyone. So,
Creation is a sandpark PvP MMORPG. The core gameplay literally doesn't support a pure PvE gameplay style. The game just wouldn't function correctly, and there's quite literally a list of 100 reasons why. So in today's video, we'll be discussing this and much, much more. But before we get into that, our patrons and I would love for you to grab yourself a Coca-Cola, because Ashes of Creation has a lot of systems upon systems governed by mechanics that 99% of the MMO player base don't even know exist. So it's perfectly understandable from an outside perspective, aka the people who don't live, sleep, and breathe Stephen Sharif's farts, that the idea of Ash's open PvP nature is very daunting to the majority. Today, I'm excited to dive into this and hopefully quell some of your worries in anticipation for what really matters: the game actually fucking existing one day. Now, with all that bollocks out of the way, let's begin, shall we? So to begin today's video, I think it's important to actually discuss what Ashes of Creation is as a game and the goals Steven and the team are actually trying to achieve here. This highly anticipated MMORPG is not claiming to be a PvE or PvP game specifically. They've stated since the very inception that Ashes of Creation is a PvX MMORPG. But what does PvX actually mean? Well, it's a term for people that cannot comprehend what an open world PvP MMO is. In my opinion, the use of this term has caused some minor damage, not because the devs have not been clear, it's because the people for whom this term was created for cannot quite understand the basic mechanics that govern this game, leading to some severe misconceptions for how the PvP rules actually function. You're dumb. I'm calling you dumb. And because the average IQ
Wait, what was it?
Exceptions for how the PvP rules actually function. You're dumb. I'm calling you dumb. And because the average IQ of the MMORPG player base is far below average, the term PvX has become a weapon against the development of Ashes. An MMO should have never been divided between isolated PvP and isolated PvE. Players should always be able to interact, kill, or help each other. An MMO is just that, a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, which means that all players exist continuously in the same world. Not in stages, not instances, not arenas, not raids, not shards, etc, 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 but as the years have gone by and the player base grew up, in name only mind you, they started throwing their toys out of the pram and were insistent that they knew how to run this genre better.
I think he's incorrect here. To be fair to the players who do not enjoy open world PvP, a lot of people just don't enjoy that style of game, and it was either they changed the style, they changed games such as Ultima Online and other games that came out with PvE only, or they just weren't going to play. It wasn't a matter of that they just weren't enjoying that style of game, and the development companies needing money to develop the game saw that they were going to lose a tremendous amount of revenue. It's not a matter of they should have only allowed this style of gameplay. It's a matter of they couldn't only allow that style of gameplay. Ultima Online was starting to lose subscribers. They changed. EverQuest came along and saw the requirement or the need to have PvE only areas because they need revenue in order to develop the game. There's not very many successful PvE or PvP or PvX games that are out there
than the devs who originally created it. So again, what does PvX mean? It doesn't mean that you are promised a 50-50 split of both PvE and PvP content. It means that the progress of your character is directly affected by your ability to explore the world and use resources, as well as fend off players with which you have a conflict of interest. But there's no denying toxic PvP is a death sentence for most MMOs. Griefing and cannibalism has pretty much killed all MMORPGs that dare call themselves open world PvP. But did they die because of the PvP? Or did they die because they were all jam-packed with infinite amounts of pay-to-win and zero content to actually engage it? I find it rather strange when people attack this particular aspect of Ashes when, in the current year, all our popular MMOs are
hollow corpses.
And the players who still play them also embody
hollow corpses.
Back before this insidious single-player mentality began to take over roughly 10 or 12 years ago, community interaction was a core part of this genre, and PvP was a large majority of this. There are no memorable or interesting events that happen in MMORPGs that involve that single-player-esque gameplay loop. It's the massively multiplayer elements that make this genre interesting and unique compared to literally every other genre out there. So let's change gears a little and actually discuss Ashes of Creation's plans for PvP and why it's different to what most of you are probably used to. So Stephen himself jumped into the comment section and addressed a few.
See, here's the problem. Like, you can have these systems in place. I'm gonna keep playing the video, but there are people who just simply do not want to participate in PvP. It's not a matter of, are the systems in place to stop people from griefing? There are simply people who do not want to participate in PvP. And they're a large chunk of the player base. I know that there's a large group of people that like to PvP. I'm one of them. But there's people that don't want to have to worry at all about getting jumped. And I know there's systems in place to encourage people not to just jump people for no particular reason. But there are players who want nothing to do with PvP in the open world. They don't want to participate in it. And I think those are, and it's a large portion of the player base. So I think that was the point of the original video by what was his, the guy that we watched the last video. I hate the fact that I don't remember his name, and he doesn't have a link to the video that he's talking about. Lucky Strike.
Interesting things related to the PvP mechanics. This is good for me to pad out this video.
So he'll go through the mechanics and the systems that they've got in place, but I think the main point is that there's a large portion of the player base that don't want a PvP at all, like ever. So
sweet ad revenue, and I can use this
and
to
those are the players that will not play
us
this game
into mechanics that actually already exist and are positively received by the modern MMORPG player base. Stephen started by explaining Ashes of Creation's PvP systems are actually very close to what Lineage 2 had back in the day, modernized slightly to prevent some of the obvious flaws that it had. He touched on how crowd control is treated differently, the disparity between player levels, the nullification of alt characters exploiting the corruption gain, and of course emphasizing the punishment length of
hold on, let me quickly read this. Ability of CC effects do not apply to non-combatants. A target, so you can't open up on someone in this game with a CC ability. Corruption gain also takes into account level disparity between the players. So the higher the level, the disparity between you attacking someone and the level of the person being attacked will give you more corruption, which is okay, that's fine. But if somebody doesn't care about their corruption, they're not going to care about that. PK ults would be highly ineffective since acquiring corruption will apply dampening effects on skill damage for PvP. The higher your corruption score becomes. Since acquiring corruption will apply dampening effects on skill damage for PvP, the higher your corruption. So you'll do less damage the higher your corruption is. That's a big one, actually. This one here is a big one. Working corruption off through XP grinding also takes significantly longer than Lineage 2. I played Lineage 2 for a very limited amount of time. I was playing other games at the time, too. I didn't have a problem with it. It was just a grind, a real grind, like more than World of Warcraft to get to max level. And during that time, we've created a bounty system. So basically, they're going to force you to go out and get XP. But at the same time, you're going to have your character placed on a map so bounty hunters can come find you while you're trying to work off that corruption. So that's interesting.
Being corrupted in comparison to what it was in Lineage 2. But what is this elusive corruption system, I hear you ask? Well, in Ashes of Creation, you can quite literally flag yourself for PvP anywhere in the world with a press of a button and attack anyone, provided they are either 1, not in your group, and 2, not in your guild. Now that may sound scary to you dad gamers out there, as your crippled boomer hands can hardly perform a basic rotation in WoW, but there's a system that actually protects you from being randomly murdered by sweaty neckbeard kids all day, every day. And that system is called corruption. When you brutally murder an innocent to stroke your E-peen in Ashes of Creation, you're hit with a massive negative status effect that not only makes you a huge target for everyone, but also reduces your performance as a player by a significant amount. The goal for this corruption mechanic, in my opinion, should be to nullify all forms of random pointless murder and punish these so-called griefers in some way, shape or form. This system mimics very closely Black Desert Online's karma system, and although BDO is very flawed as an MMO, leaning on some very single-player aspects, the karma system works well, and improved upon, can easily create a meaningful beautiful open-world PvP environment here in the modern age that complements and encourages the social gameplay we've been missing oh so much. Now, I don't usually react to videos specifically because it's not really my style. Saving that to pad out my streams in the future, you see. But there was a particularly stinky take that I wanted to respond to specifically.
Uh-oh.
Take it away, Asman.
Every time that you give one player agency over another player's experience in a video game without their consent, you will 9 times out of 10 create an outcome that is bad for the game. That's just what happens.
Uh-oh.
Players interacting with each other is bad for the game.
That's just what happens.
Let me listen to Asmongold's take again, because
Times out of 10 players.
Way, Asman.
so I'll listen to it again, and then
you give one player agency over another player's experience in a video game without their consent, you will 9 times out of 10 create an outcome that is bad for the game.
so Asmongold and I disagree on many aspects, well, certain aspects of PvP. For example, I personally believe things like level 20 shamans and priests is perfectly fine in classic World of Warcraft. It's part of the game. You signed up for that when you joined a PvP server. I've heard Asmongold many times talk about griefing and stuff like that, and I personally don't believe that somebody should be able to be have their account suspended or something like that for corpse camping people or griefing them so that they can't play the game. That's just me, but I think Asmongold has a very different take, and it's not necessarily that his take is wrong. His take is that if you allow somebody to basically grief somebody to the point where they can't play the game, it's going to be not a fun experience, and they're going to stop playing the game, basically. So
That's just what happens.
it's true. He is right, because there's people that have a miserable time playing that type of a game. They don't have other people to play with, and I've seen other videos where people are like, "Well, just go find other people to play with." Some people don't have time to do that. They just want to enjoy the game, and these people are like, "Well, get good, kid," or something like that. That's basically the response. But
Players interacting with each other is bad for the
they're not just interacting to the game, though. I mean, let's be honest. They're not just interacting with the game. You've got one person or group of players that are just dominating another player and their purpose for doing this is making their life miserable. If you ask me, I'm okay with that being in the game. Asmongold is not okay with that being in the game. It's not just interaction. It's the purpose of the interaction is just to piss people off, basically. And why would you play that game if you're the person that's getting bullied? Like, a lot of people just say, "Fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go play something else." And that's kind of the point of this whole conversation is, should those players have a PvE server for them to go and enjoy and not have to worry about getting griefed? And then the people that are doing the griefing, the PvP or whatever, the people that they are griefing in turn could be, better players, better PvPers anyways. Make it more challenging.
game.
Sponsorship? No.
No. This can't be real. He can't be serious. I must be misunderstanding.
I usually enjoy Narc's takes, but in this, I actually think he's wrong. He's basically saying everybody should be able to interact with people, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. Keep in mind, I'm okay with that, but you've got to understand you're going to lose a large portion of the player base if you allow this to happen. And if you're okay with that, you're okay with it. Asmongold is basically saying you're going to lose a large portion. I think that's what the guy that we watched the video yesterday is saying. And if Steven Sharif and his development team are okay with that being the result, then march forward with it.
Yes. I know. The way I can truly understand him is to assume a new form. The only form that could understand this take. Now, Asmongold has some pretty bad takes when it comes to MMOs these days, and this particular reaction was a nice compilation that encompasses everything wrong with modern.
Asmongold does not like griefing at all. Like, I've seen countless times where he is very anti-griefing in video games. So I personally have no problem with it. I've been a griefer for the majority of the time that I played MMOs. You could consider me being a griefer in the past. I personally don't have a problem with it. Asmongold hates it. So
MMORPGs, but that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. They may be wrong, but diversity is exactly what I advocate for here on this channel. Without diversity, Ashes of Creation cannot make the correct choices. But I want to follow this up with an anecdote about risk versus reward and why PvP is important to me as an artisan main, aka a player who quite literally doesn't give two shits about combat. And I'm going to do this by taunting my favorite bunch of low IQ brainlets. New World was ass. Its combat was trash, its endgame was non-existent, and the moment-to-moment gameplay loop was boring. However, the thing that really ruffled me up was the gutting of their core PvP features in favor of appealing to as wide of an audience as possible. Originally, New World was supposed to be a faction-based open-world PvP game. However, Amazon, being the marketing geniuses they are, decided to implement a toggle-on PvP feature last minute. This feature is also known as War Mode, the final nail in the coffin for World of Warcraft's open world PvP, giving players the ability to opt out of PvP in a game that is supposed to be PvP focused, completely destroys any value that travel had, the socialization has, but most importantly, the economy has. I was heavily focused on the economic side of New World. It is what I specialize in after all, and I have never witnessed a crash at the launch of an MMORPG quite like a New Worlds. For weeks, players couldn't even afford to repair because every single material was worthless. It was made worthless because the game that was supposed to be designed around contesting materials with PvP allowed players to just ignore this particular gate and turn off their PvP like the careless dad gamers they are and chop
I still can't
trees
believe the New
forever.
World did that.
Ashes of
I can't-
Creation is very different.
When they decided to make it, this is the problem, and I think World of Warcraft is facing the same thing. Allowing people to flag on and flag off, just have PvP and have PvE servers. Like, it's really irritating because you're not really appeasing to anyone.
In this regard, and is handling PvP in a way that complements sandbox.
PvP griefing does not exist in which game? Like in early Ultima or in early WoW, it definitely did. It did it, but there was like a reason to actually PvP it. Like what Tyrants did, you could consider that griefing. We'd just sit outside raids and just wipe group after group after group of people coming in. You could consider that griefing. Like we didn't even care if you had buffs on you anymore. We just kept killing you. So there's definitely griefing. There's the priests and shamans that are dispelling buffs. People consider that griefing. I consider it PvP. I mean, you're on a PvP server. You knew that stuff happened when you joined, but people want to join a PvP server to say that they're on a PvP server. It's like there's people that are out there that are too embarrassed to say that they play on a PvE server. There's nothing wrong with it if you don't enjoy that style of gameplay, but don't go to a PvP server and then demand changes, you know? But
Box gameplay by protecting the one thing that actually matters, the economy. Something the modern player base seems to have forgotten is that you can actually balance your own risks. You decide when the risk is too high for you in terms of what you could drop out of your inventory. That is quite literally the beauty of player agency and why MMORPGs used to be so fun. You were the one making the choices, not the game creating rigid theme park.
See, and here's another problem that he's talking about, like losing loot out of your inventory, and you kind of have a say in how much you lose because you can like deposit a bunch of the stuff into the bank and stuff like that. A lot of people, they don't want to have to deal with the added chore of going back to town and depositing stuff to make sure that their their bags have as minimal as possible. They just want the easy way out. They don't want that. They don't want that risk of losing anything at all. So when you like enforce it, it's going to turn people off. And I love that. Like when you're out in the open world and you've got that risk of being jumped or being attacked or something like that. That brings excitement to the game. But there's people that don't enjoy that aspect of the game. They don't enjoy the fact that they could lose items that they've worked hard to get, and then get griefed over and over again on top of that as well. So if we're okay with just losing that player base, then let's just move on. We don't we don't need to make excuses. Steven Sharif doesn't need to make an excuse. So you can just say, listen, those players are not going to like this game, or there's a good chance that those players are not going to like this game. The game's not for everyone. And if we're all okay with that, then the discussion ends there.
esque rules and telling
Roman.
you how, when, and why you should be playing. Unless you're corrupted, you won't drop any gear. Therefore, Ashes of Creation is not a full loot PvP MMO. If anyone tells you it is, they are woefully uneducated. But there has to be some incentive for PvP, or it just ends up bland with no real meaning to anything, aka modern theme park MMOs. Now, the balance of all this is 100-fold. Obviously, over the years as MMOs became more shallow, less and less content was available to players who actually want MMORPGs, which means the actual PvP content available is a very, very important aspect of any MMO. You need to have multiple ways of engaging in content. If there is only one endgame dungeon and everyone is camping that, then it does become a boring gank fest where only the top PvP guild can succeed. However, if there are 10, 20, 30 dungeons and the community is spread all across these, the choice to move and contest somewhere else is always an option, and an option that has been missing in pretty much every MMO up until Ashes of Creation. This goes for the plethora of open PvP zones Intrepid have begun revealing to us as well. The oceans, the newly revealed ruins mechanic, and of course, the one I predict will be most common, the caravans. What I think is important to realize here is that Steven and the team have a lot of experience with PvP in MMORPGs as outlined by his comment. But for now though, here in pre-Alpha 2, personally, I think it's pointless to talk about a mechanic that was so broken that it literally got disabled in the first few hours of Alpha 1. So let's take a moment to stop overdosing and remind ourselves this game is still many years away from release. We're not even in a public alpha testing phase yet, so of course Intrepid...
I don't know if it's many years. It feels to me like it's like 2 or 3 years away now with how fast they're progressing.
Are going to be innovating, testing, and changing their PvP systems to be the best possible version it can be. And it's down to us as testers and you guys as innocent bystanders to provide the correct feedback. Ashes of Creation has a lot of systems governing its PvP alone, and without PvP, this game ceases to even function. So let's end today's video pressing this particular topic because I think it is a very important one to touch upon indeed.
This is what I was saying. The game is not for everyone. So you're an alpha number 2. I'm hoping that comes out sometime after Christmas, but this is what I was saying. If they're okay with saying that the game is not for everyone, and if you're not okay with open world PvP and grieving, I have a feeling that with Asmongold's comments, he may not like this game. And that's fine. It's not for everyone.
Ashes of Creation isn't made for 90% of the modern MMORPG player base. The point of Ashes of Creation...
Yeah, this is what I've said in the last 2 videos now. If like a large portion of the player base is not going to enjoy the open world PvP and the threat of being jumped or losing some of their loot or whatever, and if they're okay with that, then I'm okay with it because that's the type of game I want to play. But as long as everybody's okay, well, the 10% and Steven Sharif and his team are okay that a huge portion of the player base is not going to want to play this game after a while, and that's fine with them and that's what they want, then by all means, I'm good to go.
Creation is to show that 90% how an MMORPG is actually supposed to be made. None of our currently popular MMOs are actually MMOs. They've devolved into single-player lobby games that give you the illusion of a massively multiplayer world because you can see the odd pleb running around playing their own single-player experience. In my
True.
opinion, the reason why MMOs are a dying genre is because it's lost its soul. It's lost its purpose to make way for the shallow, talentless corporate trash monetized out the wazoo with predatory.
But you can play single player on your dragon and like have dragon flying or whatever that stupid mechanic is.
Convenience-based practices. It's okay that Ashes of Creation isn't for you. You have your well, actually, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Your trash MMOs that cater to your lazy, shallow mentality in the form of Final Fantasy XIV, World of Warcraft, and whatever else bends over backwards to shove convenience up your already torn up arsehole. I want to touch on a comment I see very often from not only the copium addicts feverishly consuming information related to this non-existent game, but also from a lot of YouTubers much larger than myself. I want Ashes of Creation to survive, or I want Ashes of Creation to be big. And this comment rubs me the wrong way because you're trying to advocate for things that quite literally killed the MMORPG genre. If you want Ashes of Creation to succeed, you should be focused on improving the core design pillars, the social, meaningful, and satisfying progression that MMORPGs offered us back in their peak, back in the golden age, not these modern day convenient systems and hand-holding gameplay that caters to the lowest denominator. Let us have our PvP. If it fails, it fails, but at least we tried. I don't want another MMORPG reskinned with the exact same thing the other generic 500 copy-pasted MMOs did before. If you don't like the prospects of Ashes of Creation, that's okay. Steven has said many times, Ashes of Creation is not going to be for everyone. I'm okay with the game settling on a couple of 100,000 players. I don't need the game to have millions or to dethrone World of Warcraft for that top spot.
I think the problem though is worrying about whether or not the player base will be enough that the development team is actually, or the company is actually making money off of the game and they want to continue developing it. I think that's the biggest concern as to why people want it to be, you know, a very healthy player base.
That's not the point of this project.
And I mean, sure, Steven Sharif is paying for a lot of this out of his pocket, but how long even is he going to be willing to do that for?
The point is to prove that a true open-world PvP MMO can thrive in this age of single-player trash and still sustain itself without compromising its monetization with pay-to-win elements. If it succeeds at that, I truly believe it will spark a new era for this genre, because it will remind everyone exactly why World of Warcraft had 12 million players back in 2008. But as usual, I am just one nerd desperate for a good MMO, and my opinions mean nothing without yours in the comments below. And hey, I heard you like watch parties, and considering I've nothing to shill here at the end of this video, why not come and join our humble Discord community and waste your life talking about an MMO that quite literally doesn't even exist. Additionally, we will, as always, be hosting a watch party for this month's upcoming artisan-focused livestream.
But Narc, nobody cares about your trash watch party. You didn't even bother to do one for Pantheon this month. I'm highly disappointed.
And to that I say, listen kid, Pantheon doesn't even have convincing concept art, let alone PvP, so why you're bringing up Pantheon again during this video is completely random and, quite frankly, nobody fucking asked. It's almost like you're just trying to artificially gaslight your game using my platform because, you know, we're high on copium.
All right, another good video. So either you agree or disagree whether or not they need the player base or the added numbers for the player base. If they feel that they're gonna have enough players playing based on PvP alone, then great, because that's the type of game I'd like to play. But I do understand the comments by well, Asmongold, for example. I don't agree. I believe that griefing should be allowed into the game, and the game's not made for everyone. And if they don't like the game because they get grief, there's lots of other games for them to play. So that's basically my take on that. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please go to Narc's channel, like and subscribe to his videos, as always. And if you enjoyed my commentary, please feel free to subscribe and like my video as well. I live stream on Twitch 6 days a week from 9 p.m. Eastern to, well, whenever, till whenever, basically. Tuesday through Sunday at twitch.tv/Alodar. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.